Top-Bed Talk.
So our first session, we're really going to talk about the size and the scope of the problem. So why do we need perioperative medicine? Why is it important? And how do we start that conversation about the value proposition of it? First, though, Jim, can you tell us just a little bit more about you?
My current role is I'm the Senior Vice President and Chief Medical Officer of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan actually is the fourth largest Blue plan. It's in the top 10 as far as health plans in the country. But up until 4 months ago, I was and actually to some degree I still will be, a practicing clinical anesthesiologist. I was chair of the department at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles for the past about year and a half. Before that, I was spent 28 years at Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak, Michigan. The past 13 as chair, left there in early 2019. Very passionate about this subject, really begins glad it's part of our future. I'm not going to fault Dr. Englesbe for wearing that big Block M sweatshirt today, considering I went to Michigan State, and we're just going to overlook everything and we're just going to move forward.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us to get an EBPOM. This is not your first EBPOM meeting, is it?
I've done a couple. I'm a big fan of the movement, so to speak. So it's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. It looks like you're doing some clinical work today. Mike, for all of our new EBPOM viewers, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I work for Jim Grant largely. I'm a surgeon at the University of Michigan. My clinical practice is liver transplantation. That's why I'm in scrubs. We're having an unanticipated day of transplant chaos in Ann Arbor. But my relevance to perioperative medicine is I've run the pre-op clinic for a long time at the University of Michigan. And I think my interest in perioperative medicine largely stemmed from kind of like people who do it really well, like Franco Carli, and I think Sol Aronson. Sol's kind of an unknown hero of mine because he said that, perioperative medicine really is kind of stepping stone to good population health. I think about that every day. And then most of my time, I run the quality collaborative portfolio in the state of Michigan. So Blue Cross very generously funds kind of the quality improvement and high value care movement in Michigan. They fund the physician community to run that. And I lead that endeavor, which I'm excited and proud to do. That's why I say I work for Jim. So,
well, and could I tell you, actually, Eck and I were on a phone call last night with all the CQI, our quality group leaders. He does a great job. Mike I would be lost in this job if I didn't have Mike actually handling that. So I got to give him tremendous credit for that. And that's a program that Blue Cross Blue Shield is very proud of and has it just takes better care of people.
Well, we have a lot of international listeners. Jim, can you just take a little bit deeper dive on how that works? Because it is a really interesting model.
The CQI initiatives? I'll probably split this with Mike a little bit. I'll tell you from the perspective. So we have 17 what are called collaborative quality initiatives. And what they are is they're funded mostly by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. But we just fund it. We don't actually run it because we want it to be a very independent run. The registries, they were really the first registries to gather information, to gather data about the care we take of patients. And it's an investment that we make to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars a year. But on the other hand, it's an investment because it actually takes better care of patients. The data that's come out of it has been tremendous. We think we've probably, at the end of the day, not only are we taking better care of patients with the information from our registries, it's probably saved us a little over $1 billion of healthcare costs. So it's a win-win-win-win. But we hand it over to our clinical leaders, mostly at the University of Michigan. There's one of our collaboratives that's based out of Henry Ford. I can't give it anything but the highest praise, nationally known throughout the country. Michael does a great job of bringing them all together and working collaboratively. And it's not competitive between Hospital A and Hospital B and Hospital C. So much of it is blinded, but it's competitive to the point, this hospital's doing it well, this one's not. Let's take a look at how we can do to just take better care of people. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike to describe it too, because he's, like I said, he's our champion.
Yeah, I mean, the vision of a private payer funding the nurse and physician community in a state to really drive the mission of high value care is just inspired. And I sincerely think care in Michigan is the best in the country because of it. And I think one additional important point, it serves everyone in the state, every patient, every hospital, every practice. It's not just Blue Cross patients, so to speak. They're committed to every patient, young and old. And it's a remarkable organization. And we focused initially on kind of surgical care, anesthesia care. We're now expanding into chronic disease management.
Yeah, actually, that's what I was going to ask, if it was just surgery only. Go ahead, Jim.
No, so actually, I want to dovetail on what Mike's saying. We have 17 different of these quality collaboratives. We're now moving it up to 19, and the 2 that we're working on introducing are really a little bit out of what we've been doing in the past, and they're about chronic care. And I've got to give credit, he's not going to be on this call, to a gentleman named, 2 people, a guy named Tom Simmer, who's an internist by background, and he's my predecessor as the CMO of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. This was really his vision. And sort of our head lead on the operational side is a guy named Tom Lydon, who really is passionate about wanting to do the right thing at the right time for patients, and really has been just tremendous in leading this successful project. But we're bringing 2 on board very shortly. One of them's on diabetes, and one of them's on low back pain. And it's going to give us a little bit of perspective. All of our other ones are pretty procedure-oriented, but this one's going to be a little bit different. And we think that we're going to take our successes from the procedure-based one and hopefully take them into something that's so crucial to the healthcare of our community as diabetes and low back pain. Mike, you agree with most of that?
Yeah, and I think how this, I agree completely. And how this is relevant to perioperative medicine is that for so many patients, their engagement with the healthcare system, not only in the U.S., but in general, is around acute events in their life, whether it be having a baby or breaking their leg or having a heart attack. And that is kind of the grand teachable moment to either diagnose or engage patients in their health, their foundational health around things like diabetes or inactivity, anxiety, depression, smoking, all of the kind of foundational health problems that we suffer from in around the world, for that matter. So that mission and vision is where we take kind of the perioperative angles. The majority of these are kind of quote procedure based. Perioperative care is relevant, and we use it as an opportunity to do things that are pretty innovative and get people active, get people to quit smoking. If you come in and you need your gallbladder removed, we aspire, I can't say we're there yet, but we aspire to have you leave more than without a gallbladder, but on a better kind of health trajectory overall. And I think this kind of, when I heard actually Sol Aronson kind of speak about perioperative medicine as population health, for me, it was like a eureka moment, because our platform within Michigan is really an unmatched place to kind of realize that vision. So we're starting that. Obviously, none of our systems are set up to really do that kind of care, and it's going to be a long journey. But anyway, I'll stop talking, Desiree.
Well, no, it's great. No, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about. I mean, it really is covering a lot of the questions. But, the first question that we really talked about is, why do we need, perioperative medicine? What is the problem? And you mentioned a couple of those things. And Jim, further to what you guys are doing with, diabetics and other things, is there truly a need? Let's talk a little bit more about that. Jim, I'll let you go with that first.
It really is truly a need. We've come to the conclusion that, that care isn't a continuum. 30, 40 years ago, the care started pretty much when the wheels of the cart went into the operating room, and care ended when the patient was signed out of into the operating room, and care ended when the patient was signed out of recovery room. We've learned so much about healthcare now that really, like we said, from the time a decision is made to do a surgical procedure to 30 or 60 days out, it's really part of one event. I think we've learned so much from our enhanced recovery programs, from a lot of our post-op care issues. And we've actually made care so much better. If you think of what we're doing today as opposed to what we did, I would have told you 10 years ago that we'd be doing total joints and back cases as outpatients, sometimes in hospitals, sometimes in ambulatory surgical centers. You would have thought I was totally off base, but now it's become almost somewhat of the norm. And that's the beauty of what we're doing, getting patients ready both physically and mentally for surgery. And we've realized that there's a lot of components that go into perioperative care.
And it's not, I think, as you just alluded to, it's not just about us as providers. It's, the value to the patients. So, I was just going to ask about, the value add for the patients when we talk about kind of the perioperative medicine model.
Yeah, it's funny. A couple months ago, my dad was having a moderate sized procedure, and he lived about an hour and a half from the place where he had to have care. And he calls me up, and he doesn't like, he's 80 years old, doesn't like driving on the highway. And he's like, all these darn trucks in the road in Florida, and they're making me go back to the hospital for something called a preoperative history and physical. this is driving me crazy. Why do I have to do that? And then they gave him like 60 opioid pills. So like my life's work is essentially around opioid prescribing and essentially, the preoperative kind of history and physical, to which I responded to my father, do you understand what I do for a living, Dad? Nonetheless, it is not easy, but for the patient, I feel strongly that they come to us in the perioperative event in a uniquely vulnerable situation. And we can do more than just kind of put them in the pathway, so to speak, and get them through the surgery as efficiently, or for that matter, not to be a little cynical, but as profitably as possible. I think we clinicians want to do everything they can to improve the patient's health. It's just a matter of kind of tweaking the pathway a bit so that we can add value for the patient. And what does value mean? I think we have to redefine that a little bit. I think high value care, high value perioperative medicine really has some outcome measures that are population health level. So some of the best work I've seen is around, I think, smoking cessation. It's such an easy target. And in Michigan, 14% of our adults smoke, but almost 25% of our people who come to our operating room smoke, because smokers have more health problems. And we're working hard to just use that as that opportunity. And even if we're successful 10% of the time, we'll add, hundreds of thousands of years of life to our state population. So it's a little bit of a different way of thinking about the opportunities in perioperative medicine. I think we as surgeons, internists, and anesthesiologists, we don't take advantage of that because we're in such a hurry to kind of crank through. And so it's a different mindset, and we have to align the financial incentives and the payment models to make something like that feasible, which is a long haul.
Desiree, and when I was thinking about it, I'm going to use an analogy here that I've never used before. And so often in anesthesiology, we use the airplane, the pilot, we use the airplane analogies. And it would be sort of telling somebody that didn't understand what we do. Could you imagine if you showed up for a trip and it's not more than when you sit in the seat and when you get out of the seat? There's so much that goes into getting you to that seat effectively, and there's so much to sort of conclude your trip at the other end. And that's probably where perioperative medicine falls in. And it's not about sometimes it's doing more, sometimes it's doing less, sometimes it's doing just what's best. And that's what actually, when patients go through the process and they begin to understand it, and it is a whole continuum. And when they come in that day, they know what to expect. And it's more than labs. It's getting the patient ready. It's getting them for the right physical exams. It's avoiding unnecessary tests, but doing necessary tests. And it's actually we talk about the patient. Perioperative medicine, to me, isn't just about the patient. It's about the family. Because if the family's there and supportive and engaged, the patient does so much better.
Let's talk about the value of perioperative medicine for the providers, us personally, as well as our hospital and hospital systems. Jim, you want to take that one first?
We're giving better care. We're getting patients, our patient experience is greater. Our patients are happier. Our patients understand what's happening. Patients are staying less. And let's talk about, we don't want to talk about it, but sometimes there's a cost. If a patient goes home a day sooner or 2 days sooner, or when they get home, the home care is there available for them, and the home health nurse is actually meeting them there, and we have follow-up with them. These are all things that it's a win-win-win. Not only is it better care, not only is it better experience, it's actually decreasing the cost of care. So from the hospital systems perspective, it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, from your perspective, as a surgeon, how has implementing and utilization of perioperative medicine models changed your perspective as a surgeon?
It's helped me kind of understand kind of the broader context of how a patient goes through surgery. I guess that's one answer. Two is, I don't want to claim that doing this well is easy. I don't know anywhere that really does this particularly well, at least places I've seen. There's so much opportunity simply because for the practitioners, anesthesiologists, surgeons, there's such, efficiency pressures, and the bottom line is none of the payment models really value this type of care. So there are many, many challenges. Better care is what everyone wants within the system. Obviously patients, families, clinicians, and systems, and payers and purchasers. So we all kind of want the same thing. I'm not really answering your question, Desiree, but
no, it's good nonetheless.
Surgeons care too. I guess that'll be my summary. It's not just anesthesiologists that care about the patient. Sometimes,
but it's valuable to you as a surgeon to know the reason is.
I think one thing I didn't appreciate that within our own kind of community, it's a really unique opportunity to intervene on at-risk patients, which we don't think about. Some patients are going to do well no matter how good or bad we are as clinicians or health systems, but really the patients that need it, so to speak, are most vulnerable patients, whatever that definition is. I think that is when kind of great perioperative care can really be transformational for them. And I think that's something that fortunately at least our community in Michigan really cares a lot about, particularly over the past year. So that has really brought a lot of people into the fore about kind of changing the way they do care.
What the beauty of perioperative medicine is, it's broken down silos between surgery and anesthesiology. And really realize that actually everyone's there most focused on the patient. And it's not about what's surgery and what's anesthesiology. It's about what's perioperative care. And I think that's one of the beauties. There's not that fighting back and forth between the ether screen that we all knew as we were growing up in this world. And it's about really collaborative care.
Yeah. Jim, you're going to be a little bit biased on this coming from Michigan as a payer. So we know perioperative medicine is good for our patients. As Mike pointed to, it is a bit elusive how we actually do it. What is the value proposition for the payers in this? Because obviously they're going to play a role in driving perioperative medicine in the future.
I mean, the value proposition for the payers is very simple. Anything that makes care more affordable and improves the quality. And I can't think of anything. Perioperative medicine is the definition of that. Definitely improved quality, improves affordability. And that's why we support these initiatives. And that's why, as a leader in anesthesiology, I couldn't be more proud of the work that's come out in the past 15 or 20 years on perioperative medicine. And I think we would just begin to touch it. We've just begun the beginning of it. And the payers, as Mike will tell you, at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, and I can speak for them, we're totally supportive of the work that's gone on in perioperative medicine. I think, and we've proven that both with our support and with our dollars.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how other payers start to get into this area. Do you see a movement in the industry, not just obviously in Michigan, but in other parts of the U.S.?
Desiree, I'd love to tell you yes. I've only been doing this for 4 months now. But definitely I'll be one of the greatest champions of actually taking the work that Mike and his crew has done, and Sachin Ketterpal, who's sort of his partner on the anesthesiology side, and taking that and being your biggest cheerleader.
So if you see me looking down, I'm not texting friends. I'm looking at Slido, I promise. Okay, for Mike, how does your institution justify paying for your pre-op clinic? And how does your administration view the value add? Great question. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Daily challenge. We have a heavily staffed perioperative clinic, so that's a big expense. We don't generate any kind of revenue. The value proposition, I think, is based on the following. One is we do get some financial incentives through innovative projects that Blue Cross sponsor, like around prehabilitation and best care around pain care. Two is that the pressure point in my own organization is the hospital is always full. So anything we can do to reduce length of stay is high value for my organization. Three is that our case cancellation rate is essentially almost zero, despite the fact that we have, among the most kind of complex case mixes in the country because of how tight the kind of the flow is between nursing care, anesthesia, and surgical care. So I think that is the value proposition. But the bottom line is it's a cost center and it doesn't bring in revenue. So you have to have strong champions within your organization to understand that. And I guess the only final thing I'll say is that it also gets perioperative medicine out of busy kind of surgical clinics, and kind of we take it kind of off the kind of the busy, what we call the hill, so to speak, and we put it in the little kind of outpatient surgery, outpatient clinic. That's a cheaper place to deliver care. Patients like it. They don't have to park and stuff like that. So that's the value proposition. But it's a great question and very institution specific.
Jim, Mike, thank you so much for being our first ones on our virtual couch per se for this EBPOM meeting.
Top Med Talk. Thanks for downloading Top Med Talk. Don't forget to subscribe via your podcatcher. Don't forget to check us out on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And also, don't forget, Top Med Talk is the broadcasting arm of EBPOM, Evidence-Based Perioperative Medicine. We'd love you to find out more about that. If you check out ebpom.org, you can find low prices on some of the conferences we're organising around the world. Many of them are virtual and don't even involve you leaving your own home. Check out ebpom.org now.